think there was this scandal a couple of years ago about the affordable housing.
Yeah.
There was a loophole in the law. Can you tell us about this scandal?
There is law-binding urban plans. So they're not obliged to build social housing according to this plan, but they are obliged to build middle-class housing, let's say. So that means those apartments will be sold average 20% under the usual selling price. What did they do? They advertised this only to their inner circle. They sold this to friends and family, actually. And so we know a woman who was completely prepared. She went to the bank. She was like, wow, finally I can maybe have a chance to a middle-class apartment. Then she came there and the guy was like, actually, we already sold 7 of the 8 apartments. And she was really in shock. Like, how is this possible?
And this is only one of the malversations and financial tricks that the developers are using in order to cause gentrification and make more profits. Today, we're going to have an interview with 2 prominent activist groups in Brussels who are actually fighting for more just cities with better housing policy and less gentrification. Without further ado, let's see what kind of hidden insights they can reveal to us. Stay tuned. Before we dive deeper, a quick context for this gentrification story. This is Brussels, and this image shows a portion of the area around the canal. This urban zone is predominantly a low-income neighborhood. Over the past 5 years, several new high-end developments have been introduced, such as this project here, this one, and this one. Despite these changes, the official authorities have not reached a unanimous decision acknowledging that gentrification is taking place. Now, let's explore this area a bit further and uncover the efforts our friends are making to combat gentrification. Let's see whether what's happening here truly qualifies as gentrification and what we can learn from it to help make our cities better in the future.
Hello, Victor. Could you please introduce yourself and say something about the organization where you work?
Yeah. So my name is Eva. I work for BRAL. BRAL is an organization that has been working about urban issues in Brussels, mobility issues, sustainability in Brussels since the 1970s. So it exists 50 years. And yeah, what I really like about BRAL is that we always try to find the balance to work with the government if something good is going on and we can do a project together, or support or teach politicians or talk with policymakers. But if we're really not agreeing and something bad is happening, we can also go on the streets and we become more activists. So this is a nice balance between those 2 roles.
So you can be like, you can identify yourself as a bridge between the locals and politicians.
Yeah. So we also translate like very complicated urban decisions or laws or plans and try to translate them so people can participate in them and understand what's going on or give their opinion about it.
So can you identify the institution or the organization as a lobbyist or more activism?
I think we have different roles. We do very much like lobby work, but we also talk a lot with researchers. We also do mobilization work. We talk with citizens. So it's really different. I think we can have like different hats, which is, I think, very powerful as an organization.
Interesting. So why we are here today, actually, and what is this area, and where is the location, and what's going on, actually?
So we are here today because if you can see next to this beautiful park, the private developer Nexenza is planning to build 16 buildings, extra buildings on the parking space we see over there. Housing, a lot of bureaus, a lot of office space, and horeca and équipement public. Like, how do you say this?
Public facilities.
Public facilities. But so this used to be public terrain. So this used to be in the hands of the government. But it got privatized and they sold it to a private developer. And so BRAL for a very long time has been mobilizing to make sure that they develop it in a social way so that it becomes a public space and a space for everyone. Now, recently, they started their second huge development and they have plans to build 16 new buildings over there at what's now a bit of a parking space.
So this the second phase, the first one is already built?
Yeah, that's what you see right here, these new apartments. This is called Park Lane, and that development is called Lakeside.
Okay.
The lake is very, very small pool of water, but it's called Lakeside. And we've analyzed the plans. We are interested in what is coming because, I mean, we understand that this parking can be developed for housing, and we need housing in Brussels, but there will be zero social housing, and this we find very, very wrong. And that's why we have talked to people living in the neighborhood. We've talked to different organizations, youth organizations, to ask them, what do you think this place needs? Because they are all surrounded by this. They surround this public area, and we just see that Nexenza is a private developer that is more and more building for people to invest their money. Mm-hmm. And this is, we have like many points. We want there to be more public facilities. We want there to be more affordable housing and social housing. We want that how do you say this? The density, the
density of the
the plans are lower, because one tower will be as high almost as the tower you see over there, the highest upside. So it will be a very aggressive development right here. And so they also made these plans without any participation with the neighborhood. So it's very much developed in this close circle of private developers without really looking at what are the needs of Brussels and of the people living here, and how can we, with an urban development, respond to that.
It's very controversial because this site, as we remember, it's on the development plan of the region since the 90s.
Yeah.
And since 30 years, there is a constant discussion about this site, what should be happening here. And all of a sudden, bam, buildings, housing. But it feels like a bubble, kind of isolated from Brussels context. And it doesn't feel welcoming people in. And that's why we move on to the threat of gentrification. Like, do you think this site, the existing one that already has been developed, and the new development will actually boost gentrification around this site?
I think it's very nice that you asked me about that. The fact that the whole development feels a bit like a bubble or isolated from the surroundings. I remember very well one of the first meetings I had with the neighborhood committee. There was this old lady talking about it, and she told us, actually, it feels like a Monaco in Molenbeek. And that was a metaphor that was really like, wow, that's really not what you want to do if you develop a place. So what I said is also that we can also analyze the surrounding neighborhoods of Tour and Taxi, and you see that there are all neighborhoods with like more poverty, more youth unemployment, houses in very bad state, many people renting. So that means that they're very volatile to gentrification. And that also means if you develop something in the middle of those neighborhoods, they should respond to the needs of the surrounding. They should respond to the residents. And if you look at the plans of Nexenza and how they, for example, advertise their apartments, it's like you can, it's advertised as financial investments instead of
come and live.
Yeah, come and live here, or it's not we have very much the impression that, like, are these apartments really for the people of Brussels or to attract richer people from outside of Brussels?
Okay, the second phase, there was a permit which was introduced a couple of months ago. It was kind of, it was a huge mobilization. Yeah. It was postponed, not rejected because of the strong movement. What was the demand, like what should be added, enhanced, modified in order to make it more compatible with Brussels urban? Yeah.
So our demands when they introduced the second phase was that the density needs to be lower. There needs to be more social housing. There needs to be more public. I always forget this word. Facilities. The green spaces should be kept for the people. So we had a lot of demands, and so what we saw is actually the government couldn't just approve the project. They had to make sure that they had to do some requirements. So what they did is now in the second phase, it's kind of like a revisited project of Lakeside. And so we analyzed the revisited project. So we kind of had some impact with our first mobilization, but not as much as we want to. So what they did is now there are more apartments with 3 rooms. So meaning more apartments for families. And they doubled the public facilities, square meters. It's still not as much as we want, but at least they made some, movement there. But what we are seeing again is that Nexenza is promising social housing, but without any guarantee. And this is what frustrates really the most, because they can sell their project with as 25% affordable housing, but this is not at all the case. If you analyze this 25%, part of it is 12% social housing, when they have no deal with any social housing company to actually make sure this will happen. Mm-hmm. They also did this in the first phase, so it's a false promise. And then you have the other half, which is this middle-class housing, which is also divided into a part which is called middle-class housing plus 20%, meaning that this is almost the same as the private market price it will be. So there is a very small percentage that will be affordable housing. Our role is to really critically analyze the story that they put out, the numbers that they put out, and see what is actually true that they're saying and what is not. And then to mobilize the neighborhoods to give them a voice in the development that's happening.
Okay, let's go back to the site. And developer, really realistic, it's a private property. There are laws from the government that can be imposed, but unfortunately the private developers are way more stronger. So what about the developer? Have you researched their background, what they are doing?
Yeah.
Get in contact with them. Actually, in such projects, we believe that there should not be conflict in a way, to be dialogue, because to gain their... not to become friends, but to have contact, maybe having contact with them direct instead of going through the municipality might be efficient or not.
Well, it's a good question. And it's always, I think we always have to think about what strategy is best. And so, of course, we had conversations with Nexenza and we try to just make them aware of the responsibility that they have, the history of the city and of also our demands. But I don't have 20 years ago, there was a huge participation project with our organizations, with Nexenza, with the government, to think of a plan that said what should we have here at least, or what are the minimal percentages. And for this, we had months and months of doing workshops, participation moments with the neighborhoods. What came out of this was a big document that said, for example, at least 30% social housing, at least 20% middle class housing, But then what happened? This document was never used. At some point, after a few years, there was the actual legal plan that came forward, which was a negotiation between Nexenza and the Brussels government without all of these other partners. And suddenly there was 0% for social housing. So yes, we want to communicate with Nexenza, but with all of this happening, we also are a bit you know what we want and you're not listening.
But you keep mentioning the developer Nexenza. What's their are they Brussels property development, or they came out from outside? What kind of projects they develop? Or?
So at some point we asked a colleague of IEB to see who are the shareholders behind Nexenza. And their biggest shareholder is Akkermans and Van Haren. And so we really wanted to know a bit what are they about, what kind of investments do they make, and we were kind of shocked. And it was really showing that these shareholders only want to see what kind of profit they made of this site at the end. So of course they have no interest in building social housing there or public facilities, because in the end they just want to know how much money was gained from this. So I actually... A few weeks ago, I thought of this metaphor. I was asking Nexenza to build affordable housing is like asking Coca-Cola to make affordable lunches or healthy lunches in schools. It's why are you asking this very, very corporate entity to bring us a social public space?
Yeah, we go back to the main issue, which is gentrification. So I'm sure you had a lot of discussion with the developer, municipality, the region. Do you ever raise the topic of gentrification, and what's the reaction actually?
Yeah.
The politicians and the developer, they laugh on it, or they say, no, we are not gentrifying, or how do they react actually?
The reaction of the politicians today is mostly, we had this dossier from long ago put to us and there is this legal plan and we can't really go around it. But so first of all, in the beginning, they also said, well, this deal is made, these 16 buildings will come then, but with our mobilization, we already pushed them to change some things. So I really believe that we can still change it. And I really think the politicians have the power to change this legal plan. And they should update it because it's so dated. I mean, I think many people agree that it's a very dated plan and we should update it. But the question about gentrification, what I find really interesting here is gentrification is not to say we're going to hate all the people that are going to live there. If you look at the neighborhood right next to this, they're kind of enclosed by the canal and by Tour and Taxi. in the canal, what kind of buildings are they making? High-end apartments with no social housing. In Tour and Taxi, what are they doing? Making high-end apartments with no social housing. How did they develop their horeca, etc. This, my friends call it like an airport space. It's really, people are not feeling invited to have a coffee there, to sit there. And then recently I even saw they have like no picnic boards. So I'm also like, is this still public space if we can't even have our own like lunch here or whatever? But so you see a very old working class neighborhood being enclosed by these two developments. And I think this is really aggressive gentrification. And for me, what's important to note the role of the state in this, the role of the city, the role of Brussels, because they allowed for it. Without the plan, they could never do it. Yes, Nexensa is the owner, but they still, I don't really understand why it's so hard for governments to be more pushing back. I mean, you have some leverage to do it. You can make a legal plan that says like, well, you know what? You can redevelop this, but we want to see at least 20% social housing, and you will be paid for that.
So actually today there is a huge event against the development of the Tour and Taxi second phase, and you chose this spot and you choose it always.
Yeah.
Why?
We choose it always because it's right next to the development of Nexensa, and it's a square surrounded by a lot of social housing in bad state as well. So it really shows that like right next to this bad quality social housing, we have these developments, and it kind of shows the inequality and the clash. What we're doing today is, so first of all, there will be a tour with people from the neighborhood explaining the 30 years of combat and of things that they did to contribute to the development of this place. Second of all, what we try to do today is there will be a researcher talking about financialization in housing, because it's a theme that comes up here. It's very interesting. So we wanted to invite more people that can, this is not only about Nexensa, this is about the future of our city. So we want to invite all the citizens to think about it, to reflect on it. And we will try to mobilize as many people to react into what's called the enquête publique. So this is like the official window of 1 month where the citizens can participate in this development.
Well, a little bit of history in order to understand how the private sector and the state pushed, in fact, gentrification.
And here we have another colleague of Eva. You, and what's your name? And
my name is Sylvain Gizegem. I'm working for a French-speaking neighborhood committee federation in Brussels called Inter-Environnement Brussels. Mm-hmm. And I've been working on Tour et Taxi also.
Interesting. So today you are also attending the event. It's a long journey. Could you tell us a little bit about the history of this place? It used to be public property.
Yeah, so it was public property. It was used for over a century. Actually, it was a customs place because there were railways on the site next to the canal, and so it was a place where goods were coming by train or by boat. To have taxes when they entered the territory. And from the 1970s onwards, it started to fizzle, the activity here, and the last train left the station here in 1991.
Okay.
So once the industrial activity was closed, was shut down, there were a lot of talks about what we're going to do with this site. So the property was owned part by the port of Brussels and part by the SNCB, which is the Belgian train company. There was a project of to build a big prison here.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully
it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And then there was a big project, a private project to build a big kind of a stadium for concerts.
Okay.
It was
an arena.
An arena, yeah, sort of. Kind of an open arena. It was an American investor who wanted to build a big place for 12,000 people, for people from all around Europe, which was completely disconnected from the neighborhood. We already have Forêt Nationale in Brussels. There was no need for it. So the neighborhood fought, and it was a victory because the project didn't happen. It was a short-term victory because just after that, the public officials decided to sell the property to a private developer.
How did it work? Like if they decided to sell, so they went in an auction or they announced it on the newspaper or between friends, like sort of?
So
if you have any insight.
Yeah. So what I know is, why do they sell this property? Because it's a huge property, huge public property.
Abandoned, empty.
It's always the same answers, to have short-term cash and not long-term development in mind. And so I don't know exactly if they did an auction or not, but anyway, Nextensa bought this property very cheap for 44 million euros. Okay. So why it was so cheap? Because it's an industrial property, and the law, the regional law at this time said you can only build industrial building here.
Because the soil is contaminated.
No, not because the soil is contaminated, but because the law was saying that there is a plan in Brussels called the PRAS, the Plan Régional d'Affectation du Sol.
The land use,
land use. You said, here is a park, here's industrial, here is housing, and here it was only industrial.
That's true. That's why it's cheap.
So that's why it's cheap, but of course the developer wants to build high-end housing and offices. He doesn't want to build industrial buildings. So what happens is that they sell the property here, and a few months after, the region, the public officials changed the law to allow housing and offices. So now the property has a much more high-end value. But what they didn't do was say, okay, we're going to change the law to allow you to make what you want to do, but we're going to take a part of the new value that we created ourselves for us.
For the city.
Yeah. So it was just that we give this to you.
That's mind-blowing.
And so now with all the development that Eva talked about and the new development, we calculated that the profit margin was 1 billion for the Nextensa for public property that was sold 44 million euros.
And despite the fact that Extensa, of course, gained loads of capital out of this land use change, they did not even think of giving the city a little, beside the park, because it was in the deal, I think, like more, at least this social housing and affordable. It's like a moral question. You already make a lot of money. Why you don't give a little bit to the city? Aren't they from Brussels, or they don't know the context of Brussels, or they don't care in a way?
I don't think they really care. They care about making money, and if the problem we have is not so much with Nextensa. Nextensa wants to make money.
Of course, yeah.
Our problem is more with the public officials who allowed this to happen, who sold the property, who changed the law, who make a PPS, a new law just for the developer, who transformed the surrounding to allow more, who makes a gentrification with public spaces around. To go back to your first question about why do Nextensa doesn't give much more back to the city? It's also more cynical than that, because they announced social housing and public housing in very short amounts. And when you do a big development like this, you have something that's called charge d'urbanisme, which is a tax that the big developer must pay. Either they pay to the public officials, or they create something that's for the common good, for the public. Yeah. And here they want to use this money to pay for the public housing. That was the only thing that the public said, okay, you can do whatever you want, but you have to at least give us 11% of public housing. And they won't even pay for that.
It sounds like a long journey and very intense, but what did you learn, like lesson learned from this side, which can be, avoided in different development in the future?
My main takeaway is do not sell public property. Limit it. We are in an affordable housing crisis. We need every public property that we have in Brussels. We need to have a long-term reflection and not just short-term money. And for the neighborhood, it's also to be quite attentive to some things that could appear as boring, such as plans and regulations, because the devil is in the details. So we have to look at this.
Of course, because it's so funny talking about this devil in the details. The municipality treat this dossier, like this building permit for the new development, as treating a building permit for building a terrace or a toilet. So they use the same procedure, this red paper with a little sketch, and they expect people to come and check. No, it should, these kind of massive projects, they should be like really massive open debate for months and months and banners everywhere. Everyone should come and participate. Not like, even with the building permit process, they treat it as, yeah, you apply, you ask for a public inquiry, who comes, who doesn't come, and all of a sudden people wake up and there is BAM! And that's also, we find it absurd how the government so far can't treat the large-scale development in a different procedure. They should oblige developers to go through different procedure, not to make their life miserable, no, but to kind of engage as much as publics in Brussels.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Now the developer is doing some public presentation during the public inquiry, so it's way too late. Everything has been, as always, everything has been discussed with the public officials way before, and the neighborhood is the last to know.
Actually, today we came for an action. What is it about?
So what we're gonna do, we measured the shadows the huge towers are gonna put on the park, and so we're gonna do with red lines. We're gonna draw these lines in the park with the people. And so our message will be, this project leaves many people in the dark or many people in the shadow. And then we will hang like the correct pictures of the projects around the park.
Very interesting.
That's what we're doing today.
And now let's see how locals are actually feeling the pressure of gentrification.
Tell us a little bit about the dynamics around the site, how the locals react, and you are part of the kind of community around it.
Yes, so I live here myself with 5 other people in a house that we rent, close to the Tour taxis in the Quartier Maritime. And it's a neighborhood that is quite dense. There are a lot of families, a lot of elderly people, but you can see it's changing quite a lot because more and more houses are being sold on the private market, and they're also being reduced to small apartments. So it's not really answering to the demand of the people, or like at least the demographics, because we need more places for families. There's also quite a lot of social housing, but a lot of those houses are inhabitable because they need a lot of renovation and there's not enough money to renovate them. So there's really this problem of having the right type of housing. And with the Tour Taxis project, that is not at all responding to this demand because it's private and very, quite luxurious and expensive. So it's difficult for people living in this neighborhood to actually buy a house there.
Do you feel actually the energy of gentrification hitting the neighborhood? Like there is already a changing in the demographic.
Yeah.
People are moving out because they feel the prices are getting up, or...
Yeah, I think you can really feel that there is a demographic change because there are more younger people that are coming to buy smaller apartments. And you can see there more and more of like this first gentrification shops and coming out and cafes. And so you can feel it. And also I have my own position in this. I mean, I'm not able to buy anything. And I actually came to live here because I was living in Saint-Gilles and I couldn't pay my rent there anymore. So I came here, but I also know that, I also have my own privileges. And so I need to position myself as well in what am I contributing to this gentrification. There's certainly something in there. I mean, it's always difficult to mobilize people that are, it's difficult. You have your job, you have your children, you have like a lot of your own, and then things to do, and mobilizing these people and asking for them to come to even more events. I really understand that it's be able to be active, it's also a privilege. Like, I don't have children. I basically have to take care of myself. So then I have more time, and this is maybe how I try to give something to the neighborhood. And we also have a neighborhood WhatsApp group there. Like, we do little like a table where we eat together twice a year to get to know each other and cross a bit the links between different people. And there's a lot happening also in the summer in the streets. And I try to go to all the local shops. So I guess this is how we can try to live together in a neighborhood.
Okay, you have full overview and about what's going on, the new future development. Did you have the chance to talk with the locals here, the neighbors, and kind of explain and to see their reaction? Or
on the Tour and Taxis project? Well, actually, only I go to the meetings that the Comité de Quartier Maritime organizes, where they do manage to get some locals. So that's where there are most of the exchanges. And in our WhatsApp, we were writing a bit back and forth on it. But I think it's also because I did study urbanism, so I know the plans, I understand what it's about, but it's really difficult. Even for us, it's quite technical. So understanding even from the plans and answering to like the public takes a lot to do, actually, because you need to understand the technical, even seeing the plans. And I think people are really concerned about this because Quartier Maritime is changing, the Gare Maritime is changing a lot. It's quite, I would say it's quite gentrifying the space. There are like very fancy restaurants in there. You also see that it's people outside the neighborhood coming. And actually where we are standing on this half fresh. There were actually quite a lot of people that didn't want this. They wanted this to be closed. And in the beginning, I was like, I didn't really understand. But they were like, we're scared that if we open up, the gentrification will come to our neighborhood. So that was really interesting because I didn't see it. I was like, but it's great. You have direct access to the park. And they're like, yeah, we use the park, but we'd rather walk around because otherwise we're just scared that the people that will live in the new towers will slowly come take over.
And finally, our friends activists did prove their point. They managed to trace the shadows that are going to be projected by the private towers over the public park. Their action, in fact, resulted with more than 3,800 appeals by the citizens. Therefore, inspired from this action, we would like to make the wrap-up of this video, as always, with one of our reflection sketches. In this image, we have illustrated how the new development is being projected in scale 1:1 with lasers or with drones. In this way, citizens could have insights of the real scale. It may look a bit like a show, but why not? It is a way to mobilize people in order to truly understand what is the impact of the development. More so, this kind of presentations can show the numbers and the profit margins that are going to be made by this development. In addition, this can stimulate to imagine important topics. Who will use the space? What will be privatized? And what will be accessible? And for whom this space would be? No, it is not about sabotaging the private developer. It is about giving the right modes of perception back to the people. And finally, thank you very much for staying tuned to this video. Probably you learned a lot. If you know some similar cases, please write them down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, share, follow. Buy the book, The Urban Revolutions, a Fun Sketch. Actually, you can support our work like that. Don't forget to collect City Secrets deck, the collectible cards. A lot of great knowledge packed in your pockets. And see you till the next moment when we're gonna start stripping all the cities around your city. Bye bye.